Today, UFC 322 is upon us. This Saturday, Madison Square Gardens. It goes down with two action-packed double main events. Where in the first one, Della Maddalena steps in the octagon in an attempt to defend the welterweight championship against Islam Makhachev. That's right, former 155-pound champion Islam mother effing Makhachev stepping in the octagon at welterweight. Plus, what about Valentina Shevchenko attempting to defend her 125-pound championship, the flyweight championship, against, remember me, Zhang Weili? That's what I'm talking about. She's also moving up from 115 pounds, the challenge for the championship. We got two former champs. They both stepping up in weight, and they ready to claim it all. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy, Matt. Go Ravens. We back in the place. Holla at us. They thought we was down, but we back. We been back. We been back. Nevertheless, man. UFC 322. It goes down this Saturday, man. This Saturday. We finally here. And I just wanted to take the first video of the week to talk about, to get into the main and the co-main event. Let's start out with the main event. Islam Makhachev moves up in weight to welterweight to challenge Della Maddalena for the welterweight championship. Man, so this was something that you could tell the UFC was working hard to pull off, all right? The whole, issues with Della versus Belal Muhammad and, Ian Gary was thrown up in the mix. There's been a lot of talk of Shaft Cat and all of this stuff. And who will Ilya challenge? Will Ilya ever move up to welterweight to chase Makhachev? Who knows? But right now, this Saturday in New York City, Madison Square Gardens, Della Maddalena attempts to defend the welterweight championship against Islam Makhachev. And I'm going to get right to it. I ain't going to hold y'all. I got Islam Makhachev. I got Islam Makhachev backed by Coach Khabib Nurmagomedov to go out there and win the welterweight championship of the world and become a two-division champion. That's who I got. Look, man, Della looked outstanding against Belal Muhammad. He looked outstanding, bro. You can't take that away from the homie. He had really good, not just takedown defense, but Della really worked hard on, I would say, his defensive into offensive grappling. Della has an interesting style on the ground where if you think you're going to get on the ground with this man and take advantage of him, capitalize on any weaknesses you might find in his ground game, you're really thrown off because not only will his defensive grappling, wrestling kick in, but he's very good in the scramble and reversing it into some form of offense. Even if he's more or less going to hold you in a position until maybe he can jump the ghillie, or if he's going to hold you in position in which when you think, oh man, Jack's just going to hold me the rest of this round, wham! The homie will catch you with some elbows, catch you with some stiff shots, you know what I'm saying? So let's throw that out there. On the feet, Della has a chin. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of fighters that got a chin. But Della got a chin. It's a double chin. And I ain't talking about fat. You know what I'm saying? Overweight. We talking about Della can take a shot. Islam Makhachev, though, is a whole different Dagestani animal. You know what I'm saying? Completely different. Early in his career, we thought he was going to be more like Khabib. more ground game oriented, more wrestling oriented. Not really worried about the stand up, not really worried about the striking, just using it to set up its ground game. But over time, Islam Makhachev, he has emerged as a really good striker on the feet. You know what I'm saying? Really good striker. He's got good high kicks, good body kicks. His hands look sharp. He's got a pretty decent jab, but his jab kind of depends on if he catches his opponent lacking. He's not going to go out there with a GSP jab, which is more of a predatory jab. You know what I'm saying? His jab is more ferocious. You know what I mean? Like a Rob Font type jab. Nah, Islam, he's going to catch you when you slipping or when you think, man, this dude ain't got no jab. Wow, you get hit with the jab. How did that happen? That's how it goes down with Islam Makhachev. You know what I'm saying? Bro, I got Islam Makhachev to go out there and win the welterweight championship of the world. After that, I don't really know what happens. When you look at that division, I do think it would be an interesting fight. I'm not even going to talk about who's next, right? Because who knows with the UFC nowadays, they got money to make over on Paramount. So you never know who these dudes is going to call and be like, hey, you getting a championship, you getting a title shot. Like Oprah, you get a title shot, you get a title shot, you get a title shot. You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. We know when you look at the top of that division, Islam is probably never going to fight Belal Muhammad because of the relationships that they share, train together. Belal definitely is a Khabib is somewhat of a mentor in a lightweight kind of way to him. So I don't really see that happening. Islam Makhachev versus Ian Gary eventually would be very interesting. Islam Makhachev versus Shavkat. Islam mother effing Makhachev versus Shavkat would be extremely interesting. You know what I'm saying? When you look at that welterweight division, you got a lot of guys that are coming up. But man, we will see, bro. We will see. I'm not sure he'll slate in next. Or will they, is it actually true that Ilia Topuria would move up to welterweight to challenge for that belt? Because he really believes he can beat Makhachev. I'm not really sure. I don't know if that would ever happen, but, nevertheless, man, I got Islam Makhachev to go out there and win the welterweight championship of the world. Let's move on to the co-main event, where Valentina Shevchenko steps in the octagon to defend her flyweight championship against Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili, the former 115 title holder. You know what I'm saying? Man, it pains me to believe this, think this, say this. I'm going to go along with Zhang Weili to become a 2-division world champion and win the flyweight championship of the world. Look, man, a few years ago, Valentina was still steamrolling women and still doing her thing. But that loss against Alexa Grasso, that really threw everything off. Like, that loss against Alexa Grasso had me thinking like, well, wait a minute now. You know what I'm saying? I know it was Alexa capitalizing on a mistake, but as we got closer toward the end of that fight, the one that Alexa Grasso won, Valentina seemed to be getting extremely tired, extremely weathered. She was still fighting a good fight. She had a good game plan, of course. She was doing her thing. But still, when Alexa capitalized on that missed spin kick of Valentina's and sank in the choke and beat her, it was like, yeah, she did capitalize on a mistake. But we were starting to see possibly age creep up on Valentina Shevchenko. And she was starting to kind of have a little bit, that pace was slightly slower. You know what I'm saying? The breathing was a little bit heavier in the later rounds. Now, then she came back and beat the brakes off Alexa Grasso in the rematch. And so we're like, well, hey, Valentina back. When she stepped in there with Manon Fiorot, Valentina had plenty of moments in that fight, but Fiorot had a lot of moments as well. And Fiorot looked off on that night. Like, that wasn't the best Farrow that we have seen. You know what I'm saying, in the octagon. She seemed that her balance was shaky. Her balance was a little bit off on a lot of her kicks, a lot of her striking. And Valentina won that fight, but still, it was somewhat close. And I know some people might have argued that Farrow won that fight. I didn't really see it that way at all. I mean, I definitely think Valentina did enough to win, of course, but she seems like she might have lost a half a step. Maybe not a whole step. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not a whole step, stepping with the big steppers. But maybe a half a step she might have lost, man. And when you're talking about Zhang Weili, the Weili that we saw go out there and literally make Tatiana Suarez look like an amateur. Made her look like Patchy Mix. You know what I'm saying? Made her literally look like an amateur. This version of Zhang Weili, I feel like, is poised. I feel like she is ready. She will dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and make sure that she goes out there and she wins this fight. She's been talking about stepping in the octagon with Valentina Shevchenko for a long time. She's wanted this fight for a long time. I really don't feel like she even wanted to fight Tatiana Suarez, but the UFC needed her to do them a solid, so she did them a solid. But man, I'm telling you, I feel like Zhang Weili's going to go out here, do her own form of making history, become a 2-division weight champion as she goes out there and defeats Valentina Shevchenko. Because I believe a lot of the ground game and just the physical force, you know what I'm saying? Like Shevchenko is hoss, you know what I'm saying? She hoss. Like she'll go out there and bully a woman, right? But I don't see that, even though she's bigger than Weili. From what we see, we haven't necessarily seen Weili at 125 pounds, so she might be way more jacked, way more diesel. I just don't think that physicality that Valentina is used to putting on these other women is going to translate against a hoss like Zhang Weili. So I got Zhang Weili to go out there and win this fight, because I believe if Valentina tries to play her normal game of taking this to the ground, maybe a little bit of lay and pray, move in position, land a ground strike every now and then, maybe a ground elbow, you know, possibly at some point about the 3rd or 4th round move for a rear naked choke of some sort. I don't think that's going to work against Zhang Weili. I don't think that's going to work. And standing on the feet, it would be very interesting. Zhang Weili is not the kicker that Valentina Shevchenko is, but if Zhang Weili has hands, let's put that out there. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about it. She got hands. So in that co-main event, I got to go along with Zhang Weili to go out there and defeat Valentina Shevchenko to become the new flyweight championship of the world. So your boy Matt is picking 2 and news. Islam Makhachev to go out there and win the welterweight championship, and Zhang Weili to go out there and win the flyweight championship of the world. So that's the main and the co-main event of the Madison Square Garden card coming up this Saturday night. It's UFC 322. I'll be right back with you guys with another video. We're going to talk about the rest of the main card and some fights to watch on the prelims. So be sure to check back in with me. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you got between Valentina Shevchenko and Zhang Weili, and who do you got in Della Maddalena stepping in the octagon with Islam Makhachev. So let me know what you think. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.